Jonathan Gibbs here with a close personal friend, Cody Thiel. We have worked together in the past. It was an amazing experience helping us create the infrastructure at SET that later became Lumio. And you've taken that experience and now you are your own CEO, growing and expanding in a really exciting marketplace.
Yep.
Tell us about Equal Solar and what's going on in Illinois.
So for us, you have so many amazing guests on the podcast. It's a slow growing thing, but we just wanted to pick a market where we know we could execute in, provide a great level of experience for everybody in the value chain, and just focus on those core things and then grow from there. So,
well, one of the questions I know you get a lot because you've done a lot of sales training in this industry, and I know you have a lot of great relationships with sales reps, is the question that comes up all the time is, where should I go sell solar, right?
Yeah.
People think that there's a honeypot out there, right? There's a happy hunting grounds, there's a magic sauce. Every marketplace is unique. Tell us why Illinois? Like, why did you choose Illinois? What makes Illinois special? How is unique different? What are the challenges? What are some of the pluses and minuses of that marketplace?
Yeah, so to answer that question in two different ways. So one, I think for every rep, there's a lot of factors that go into that. If I could go back in time, I would probably go sell in Hawaii in 2014, 15, 16, because it's Hawaii and they've
and it was like free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like you had a 30% federal incentive and a 50% state incentive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do. But Illinois, I think.
So if you don't have a time machine.
But I have a time machine. So the reason we've chosen Illinois is for us, we like, one, to avoid where a lot of the big players are at.
Yeah, a lot of people that opened Illinois had to move out over the last few years. They're not there anymore.
Yep. And so it's a highly regulated state.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say this on a recorded line, but it was the home of the mob for a while.
Yeah.
And that has residual effects
to
how things work there.
Okay.
So it's a tougher market to install in. But we like that challenge because it puts a lot of the other people that would otherwise be willing to want to go there out. And then we just most people focus in Chicago. We just we're more country folk people.
Yeah.
So we wanted, we just relate better with those homeowners.
I think that's really smart. That's always been a secret sauce of mine is I've always liked this to build in the small towns first.
Yeah.
And then make my way to the big towns. I've just liked the sales experience and even the operations there. So I thought that was really smart. But I've had a personal thesis that Illinois could be the Texas of the future. And when I heard that you were in Illinois, I was really, really excited. Tell me about, because there's a lot of tailwinds right now. There's a movement between what is happening with the utilities and the rates going up and with the SRECs that is really making this actually a great value to customers right now. Can you tell me about that? Yeah,
so Illinois is unique in that they have an SREC incentive, and most SREC incentives pay over time. SREC pays that in one lump sum. So basically people get a 50 to 60% off their solar retail cost.
Now they get the cash back, or do you handle that as the installer?
It depends on the company. We do all the administrative work, but the customer gets a check.
So the company actually gets a check for going solar.
Yeah. It takes like 15, 16, 18 months, but it gets there eventually, yeah.
And so on a 10 kilowatt system, how much are they getting back?
On 10 kilowatt system, anywhere between, so it usually matches the tax credit. So if you've got a $100,000 system, your tax credit would be $30,000, and then your incentive is going to be anywhere between 25 to 30.
So that's pretty incredible. So even in a loan situation, like with Goodleap, if they allow the tax credit to roll forward and reduce the loan, they're still getting a check back.
Yes.
So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You can give them the lowest possible payment, let the tax credit go towards the loan, and still get a check back.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. What's happening on the utility side? Like, why are homeowners really motivated to go solar out there right now?
So utility side, Midwest, I don't know why. Like out here in Utah, my rates didn't go up that much, but Illinois, they went up probably 50, 60%.
50, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So people are feeling it.
People are feeling it. I've been in sales for a while, and the MO for salespeople is overpromise, underdeliver for sales. They'll say, hey, I'll do 30 sales.
Yeah.
And they end up doing 20.
For sure.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
We said we would do 50, and then the rate increase happened at the same time. And so our reps closing ratios went from the usual, 15, 20% to 80%.
Yeah.
So we did 125. We doubled our expected numbers just because of that rate increase.
Yeah.
So people are just like, yeah, I want solar. It was an easy sale.
Anything else you'd like to share about Illinois and the market? It's tough. There's a lot of legislation, but if you do it right, if you're with an installer that's doing it right, there's a great value you can give your customers.
Yeah, outside of like Oregon probably, and maybe Washington, maybe DC as well. It's probably the most regulated solar state.
Okay.
You can actually go online and see all the solar companies that have been like suspended or put on probation.
You know, I know I've
There's
seen
a
that.
long list.
Sales companies too, not just install companies.
Yeah, they'll kick
They have
anybody out.
suspended sales companies there.
So I think that's the biggest thing is like, as long as you're selling ethically and doing the right thing and setting a good expectations, it's an amazing experience. And I think that's why it fits our team well, because that's what we're not here to push volume as much as just do the right thing and have a win-win.
So let's talk about something else. There's a lot of great reps out there that have to travel, and you live here in Utah.
Yep.
But you own and manage a sales and install company in Illinois.
Yep.
How do you balance this with your family? What's that like?
So for us, and it's not right for every family, but I think my wife's just an amazing person.
Well, we know that. We both know that's a fact.
That's why. So probably should have her on it more. But what I've always, like, not always, but when I started doing better in sales is when I viewed it like an athlete. So athletes have an on season and an off season. They go travel to different places for games, and they perform and focus. When they're not in game time or practice time, they can chill and relax. And that's how we treat everybody's position in the company. Like, you're an athlete. When you're there, you focus, you perform. When you're off, you're off. And what I've noticed is that actually creates a way better lifestyle for people.
Yeah.
And we haven't hardly lost anybody because they're just like, oh, I have work-life balance in sales, and I've never thought I could have that, because we're not, from a company, constantly pressuring them for numbers. They still perform as good as any other sales rep. It's just a different structure.
That's good. Well, I know you're really big on personal development. I know you've helped a lot of people with sales development. It's the beginning of the year, it's January. Are there any new habits you're trying to create or habits you're trying to break going in this new year?
Right now is probably not the best time because I'm reading David Goggins' book, Never Finished. So I'm like in a really high strung, like, let's go. But for me and my team, like right now, what we're working on is just, man, that's a hard question. I wish I should have one off the top of my tongue. Like I said, I'm reading a book right now, so it's like.
What's the principles? Are there principles in the book you're trying to incorporate into your personal life or business?
Really, it's extreme ownership and no excuses. Those are the biggest things. It's, hey, we all have a tough life. We have cards we're dealt, but like, we just have to play those cards smart and work as a team to get through it. And that's the biggest thing. Like for me, that's the biggest single thing that's helped me recently is ultra marathon running. So
yeah, we've seen you do some crazy stuff, some like 50-mile stuff, like
100 milers. Yeah.
I mean, 100 miles.
I've never met, and the reason why is you go to these events and you never meet an underperforming ultra marathon person. And I was like, why are all these ultra marathon people good in all parts of their life? It's like, well, if you're going to fit this really hard, dedicated thing in that you don't have to have a lot of talent for, you just have to have dedication for, that those principles bleed into other parts of your life. And so I always tell people, go run an ultra marathon. I'm like, I could never do that. It's like, you're running 14, 15 miles an hour, but that discipline and dedication you apply to that bleeds into everything else, and it just has so many good residual second order benefits. That's if I had to choose one thing, dedicating yourself to an endurance sport has so many residual benefits. It's going to affect everything else in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's the same concept of like the ice bathing and all these things, which is mental toughness. It's a generic term, but literally, like, if we can teach our brains to overcome negative physical stimulus, whether it's a really cold tub or whether it's mile 20 to 100 and the blisters and the aches and pains and the body like shutting down, that if we can teach it to do that, we can actually teach it to overcome the emotional exhaustion of life's hardness, things not working out the way we had planned. And well, that's really amazing, Cody. I feel like I can sit here and talk to you forever. Let's leave people on a positive note, like on a message of hope. Transitions are hard, right? Like, you can invest a lot of time, money, energy going in this direction. And then when it was clear for you that, us working together wasn't the right thing anymore, and you had to make a new path, right? As painful as it was and as uncomfortable it was, here you are years later. How can we encourage people that maybe either they need to make a transition and but they're afraid to, or they've just made a transition and their whole world's upside down. They've just started with a new company. They've just left everything they've known. Like, what did you think about during that season, right? Where you had people reporting to you, a system that you knew and understood, and then like basically starting over, right? Like, how did you start over from scratch?
Well, to try to like build a little value to the audience here with sales, I think one thing that's unique about sales is that there's no like, it's been a part of our culture and society and DNA for as long as we have record of, but there's probably only 1 or 2 universities in the world that offer sales degrees. Why is that? Because sales, for whatever reason, there's not a plan or a system or a structure. And so when people go into sales, there's these ups and downs that you described, and I've been through those. And when I first was in my career, it was really hard because I'd have a huge, like, you'd build up a big team and it would be taken away from you, or you'd build up a...
You just move it overnight sometimes.
Overnight, and it could be because of regulation. It could be because you did something, I did something wrong, or something outside my control. You build up an architecture that's producing $100 million a year and it just is gone.
Yeah.
But like, what's helped me is like, one, all right, so sales is something that society doesn't teach to value really, or to really create a structure around. Okay, how do I create a structure around that? Well, my goal is not to just have a one and done thing. It's like, this is a process. And if I learn those skill sets now and apply them, it doesn't matter what's happened to me or the market. I can repeat, and every time I repeat, I upgrade every time.
Yeah.
And so those upgrades, like just looking at it as like a learning experience, and now I know what not to do and I can do it better. Each time I iterate, it gets faster and faster. And it's like, that's with this one. Like, yeah, some things have not gone the way they should, but I took all those lessons and just compiled 10 years of learning into like a week, and now I'm faster.
So how do you overcome the mind game of, you should be further along, you've invested in this, you shouldn't have to start over again? That's a killer. Like that, those thoughts for anybody, man or woman, who's starting over again after already building something great. Because even before we met, you had built several great organizations. You built a great systems and processes inside a set, and then have to start over again. What was the internal dialogue?
I guess for me, this is like where faith comes in. It's not about like just this life, you know. Like if I was just looking at 10 years, I would get super frustrated. But it's like, hey, I got an eternity to build something. Like, my journey is about learning to create and build people, like not just enrich myself. If that was my goal, yeah, it'd be frustrating. But like, I can look at my Facebook, or I can look at the people or the messages, and people have been positively impacted, and they, without me forcing them to say, hey, Cody, I appreciate how much you've helped and grown me. And that's way more compensation to me than how much my net worth is.
Yeah.
You know, so that, again, that's just perspective of me. I understand that other people don't have that perspective necessarily, but that's what's personally helped me, is long-term eternal perspective.
I love it. We're all running a 100-mile race. We got 100 years.
Yeah.
and we got to fight through the blisters and the cramping and the mental game, but also find a way to enjoy the journey, because that's what it is. Well, man, I really hope we get to spend a lot of time together this year.
Cool.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Cody
Appreciate it.
Thiel, Equal Solar, Illinois, Door Con 6.